We're live. Hello, everyone. So, hi, welcome to the last but certainly not least session of the day, Content Heroes, pros that got it right for their brands in 2020. So, I'm Ryann Slone. I'm the Content and Communications Manager here at Knotch, and I'm really excited you guys are here with us today. So, a bit about me. I have been with Knotch for over a year now on the marketing team. So, I assist on all of Knotch's marketing initiatives. That means social media, employer branding, and virtual events like this one, just to name a few. So today I'm joined by some truly inspiring content heroes. We have people coming today from brands like Synchrony, Citrix, Savills, UPS, and DocuSign. And I would just like to note that 4 out of 5 of our panelists today are women. So that's great to see my fellow females excelling in their careers and their accomplishments in the field. So in this session, I'll be connecting with each of our heroes on their career journeys, campaigns that they're proud of, and ways that they've excelled using content. So hopefully you'll leave with inspiration for your own content programs. So you want to do this? Let's get started. So I'm actually going to bring up Rebecca Coates. And while she joins, I'll just give a little background. So Rebecca Coates. Oh,
hello.
Hi. Hello. How are you?
Good, thank you.
So we have Rebecca Coates. She's the Associate Director of Content Marketing at Savills. So Rebecca is a results-focused B2B and B2C marketer with a flair for marketing and content development in the professional services and financial services sector. So Rebecca, tell us about you and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me today, Ryan. I've dialed in from London. I'm based over here in the UK, so it's quite late at night here. This is why it's slightly dark. But yeah, I look after our content marketing for our residential sector here at Savills. So those who are not familiar with the brand, Savills is one of the larger property brands globally. We are a global company and we have a large presence here in the UK. So I started with them just over a year ago now, actually, to come in and start our content journey. So we're quite early in our journey. We don't have a huge content marketing team. It's currently me who's purely content marketing. So that actually means we've got quite a way to go, but we've made a lot of progress in 1 year. In terms of what I'm passionate about, lots of things, but in terms of content marketing, I think it's the fact that you get to go across so many disciplines, so many channels, and you really get to use both sides of your brain. So one moment you're being very creative and the next you're being very analytical and dealing with data as well. So yeah, it's a very, very varied profession.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Good to get that balance between data and creativity. We've touched on that a lot. It's pretty important. So I know you've mentioned before, actually, that content creation can be glamorous, but content activation, which can be a lot more tedious, can separate the top performers from the rest. So can you maybe tell me what you mean by that, or what the difference is between content creation and content activation?
Yeah, so when a lot of people ask me, what do you do? What's your job? What do you look after? And I'll say I'm in content marketing, and they'll say, oh, that's great. Do you produce all these glamorous adverts, and do you produce all these wonderful pieces of materials and content and blog? And I say, well, yes, I do a little bit of that, but actually the main part of my role is really to think how to take all these great pieces of content out to market, because you can spend a lot of time, a lot of budget creating fabulous things, but if no one sees them, reads them, hears them, then they're absolutely worthless. Right. So my job is really to look across all of the channels that we have, all the channels that we need to develop, and think about what the best way to reach our audience is through those.
Yeah, that's incredibly important. That's a good way to put it. And I did want to know if you have maybe an example of a great piece of content or a campaign produced maybe even during the pandemic that has really stood out to you. I know there's like an influx of content right now, but just wanted to pick your brain if you had anything that stood out as a great example.
Yeah, so bear in mind, we are early on in our content journey, and sure. Of course, the global pandemic hit across the world just as hard. So in the UK, particularly the property sector has gone through quite a lot of turbulence in the past few months. And what we do at Savills is we like to produce really, really clear advice and guidance and research for our customers and clients. So we do have a market leading research team, and they produce, I think, over 100 pieces of content per year in the form of reports. Wow. Now, one of those flagship reports is looking at our prime market, which is kind of the top 5% of the market, and what's going on there, because everyone in the UK, we're a little bit obsessed with property and we want to know what's going on. So one of the things that we've done this time is really thought about how to activate the report. it's not large budget. We don't have a lot of money to push it out. And we didn't actually do anything incredibly creative. It was just I just looked at all our channels and saw the value we could get from each one. So the early signs, the campaign's only been live for 3 weeks, but actually we've tripled our page views. And I know page views are a vanity metric, but it's a good early indication. And those numbers are in the tens of thousands as well. So I'm pretty pleased with that, because it's showing that what we're doing and the strategy we've put in place is starting to work.
Oh, wow. That's really great. No, that's incredible to hear. And, and outside of Savills, like, is there any campaign that you've worked on maybe before your time at the company, or maybe even as you were starting to realize that you had a strong affinity towards content marketing that you're proud of? I don't know. I'm just curious to see if you have anything.
Yeah, so I've always worked for large corporations. So I've before my time at Savills, I worked for Thomson Reuters. I actually worked over in the States as well, and I worked for KPMG in the UK as well. And I think these are brands that always push out a large amount of content. I think where I became really connected with content was in my role at KPMG. I looked after our consumer, retail and leisure marketing, and we produced a lot of content there. And it was something I'm really passionate about in my personal life as well, kind of the consumer industry and especially leisure and kind of eating out and things. So I think that allows me to really connect with that and help shape it.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, yeah, congrats. And I did want to know, I feel like this is always important, just as, people are tuning into the future of content in this event to learn, tactical strategies for their content marketing, but also in their careers. I know that obviously people always want to progress in what they're learning and how they're growing. So do you have any one piece of advice for others looking to grow in their careers?
Yeah, I think particularly in the space of content marketing, don't try and do it all yourself. You won't get there. The content marketing is very much a team sport to me. I am currently the only person, as I said, who does pure content marketing, but we have very, very established channel marketers around me. So I go to my social media team, I go to my paid team, I go to my brand team, and I really use their expertise as well. You're not going to grow alone, so just use those around you as well.
Yeah, it's a group effort. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, we do that kind of on our teams as well. I work on social media, but we have someone helping us with like our content, and he writes all of our pieces of content, and he'll come to me and say, hey, like, can you help me push this out? Can you help spread the word? So yeah, definitely something you do together. And I just wanted to ask too, is there like one career milestone that you kind of look back on that's really shaped your journey?
I think it would have been the time that I spent in New York City. So when I'd graduated, I had a year, I moved to London from Scotland, if you couldn't tell by the accent. And I then decided to go across to New York. I had a fantastic opportunity to join the Mountbatten program and do an internship at Thomson Reuters. And I think actually being thrown into the deep end there, really trying to absorb everything, living in a new city and things, really allows me to kind of excel when I came back. So it's just about taking the experiences that are thrown your way as well.
Yeah. Actually, I moved to New York City from Tucson, and literally it's been a completely different ballgame. It's very true. When you're thrown into things, you're like, okay, I have to make this work. I got to get it done. But I'm learning a lot. So Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. This has been so great. I'm glad you were able to dial in. And thanks so much for joining us. I have to bring someone else on stage now.
Thanks, Ryann. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Also, I have Maggie Huston coming up next. Maggie Huston, is the Senior Digital Content Manager at UPS. She is a 3-time Peabody Award-winning journalist with a diverse background in data-driven content marketing, digital analytics, SEO, social media strategy, and broadcast journalism. She's coming up here any second. We'll find her.
Hey.
Oh, here we go. Hi, Maggie. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm glad you're joining us today. So I was just wondering if you could walk us through what you do at UPS and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I lead the content strategy for UPS.com. It is brand storytelling, it's positioning, it's messaging, it's SEO. It's a lot of really comprehensive storytelling at a brand level, from the one point of your entry to all the way to the end where we're trying to get you to convert. It's a really interesting position. I really like it.
Oh, well, that's great. Yeah, it sounds really unique. I'm excited to dive into it today. And I did want to ask you a question. So I know you've mentioned that content doesn't always need to convert a customer at the moment they consume it. So depending on the industry, establishing your brand as an expert can lead to future conversations, and content can be the start of the relationship. So I wanted to ask you how you see content establishing relationships with consumers.
There's several different ways that content can establish a relationship with a consumer. What you want to do as a content creator is to make content that is appropriate for where your customer is in their journey. So some customers are at that level where they are just trying to understand what's happening in e-commerce, what's happening, what's happening in my marketplace, what are some of the big trends, how are the best in the business doing it. Some people might be there, they're just researching. Other people are trying to really get into the data. They're trying to get closer. We consider this like a middle funnel person who's really more invested. They already have an idea of what the big guys are doing and how they want to bring it down to a more tangible level. And then there are some customers who are ready to convert. So it's our job as content marketers to be able to create content that hits people at every stage of their journey, and some of that top level content isn't going to convert people right away. But what that content will do is establish yourself as a trusted leader, as somebody who understands their business and their pain points, and so that as you build that relationship with them, eventually they'll convert with you.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, I know content has many ways of establishing relationships, and I wanted to see what your thoughts were on that. So that was great. I also wanted to ask you a question about what kind of your work at UPS specifically. So as we know, during the pandemic, shipping and deliveries are more important than ever. And we've seen that UPS has done a really great job of navigating this terrain and answering people's questions, also with the creation of your COVID resource center. So I wanted to see what your thoughts were on one way that UPS has used content to respond to the pandemic that you're proud of.
There were a lot of ways that content played into our response to the pandemic. The resource center was something that we stood up very quickly within a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. We wanted to be able to have a place for answers for our customers who might be unclear about what our protocols were, what was happening in the market. We also wanted to have a place for thought leadership to live. We also wanted to have a way of making it feel real and not like we were ignoring the pandemic and what's happening at hand. We wanted to be quick to market. That was absolutely essential with launching the COVID Resource Center. But the campaign that I'm the most proud of from that time, that emerged from that time, was actually a massive campaign that spanned all of our channels called #ThanksForDelivering. Okay. This one I really felt in my soul, because I remember at the end of March, beginning of April, when everyone was too afraid to go outside of their homes, that seeing those delivery persons come to our doors and bring us food and bring us, our essentials in our lives really was a very real thing. So be able to have a cross-platform, big voice like UPS saying, "Thanks for delivering. We appreciate what you're doing for us," was really powerful. It made me feel very good about the work that we were doing. And I could tell that it really affected our drivers too. Everyone who came to my house and saw the little sign that said "Thanks for delivering," they all were extremely touched and grateful for that. So I really like that. And that goes to speaking what I was talking about earlier. That type of content isn't going to convert, but that does build that relationship with people to make them have that understanding of how UPS functions in their lives.
Yeah, that's incredibly important. I mean, content marketing, when it leaves that emotional impact and you can leave saying, wow, that really resonated with me, that really touched me, especially at a time when we need it most. I mean, pandemic isn't something that, any of us thought we'd be dealing with right now. And it's great when a brand, or it can really speak to the brand values and the brand purpose. This is what UPS does. They help deliver, they help connect people at a time when it's the most important. So that's great. I really wanted to see what you were most proud of there. I do want to know too, do you have any pivotal moments when you think your story or your time in the content marketing space really changed or really took a pivot, either for the good or for the worse, just a time where it really stood out to you that things in your story had changed?
Yeah, so as you mentioned in my introduction, I started off as a journalist. I worked at CNN, and when I left broadcast news and got into social media marketing, that was a real fundamental pivot for me from this perspective of being reactive to telling stories to being proactive with telling stories. So that was a really fun challenge. I really liked thinking about which sentence should come first, as opposed to this is the obvious lead. This is how you bring your stories to market. So that was a really pivotal change for me.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, especially like having to know when. I mean, it's essentially like you're telling stories are being shared, right? But it's different than you're reacting to, okay, this happened in the news. What are we going to do about it? Instead of, okay, now here, what story do I want to tell? What would resonate with people? So yeah, that's really cool. And I just wanted to know if you had any content heroes or even role models that you've looked up to in your career. I mean, I know there's always someone I feel like that's made an impact, right?
Yeah, my gosh, I've been really blessed. I've had a lot of wonderful people that I've come in contact with. From my time at CNN, I really looked up to some journalists like Arwa Damon. She was a female war reporter and did a lot of great storytelling from Afghanistan and Iraq. I was really impressed by her. To my current manager now at UPS, who I really admire because she has taught me how to be as a leader, an authentic leader who can be true to myself and my own personality while still bringing out the best in other people. That type of leadership, I think, is tremendously impactful, and I really has fundamentally changed me.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love honoring the people that have, helped me get to where I am today and where you are today. This has been great to talk with you, Maggie. Great to see that you're able to be here with us today as a content hero. So I'm actually now going to be introducing Molly Luppi. So Molly Luppi, you are the EVP of Corporate Advertising at Synchrony, obviously. She is passionate about building brands through unique and impactful experiences that drive business growth in the financial services industry. And she previously lent her talents to the University of Washington. So great to be joined by Molly today. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Ryan. Good to see you.
Hi, Molly. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm actually really excited about this panel. It's been going great so far, and I'm so glad you're able to be here with us today. So yeah, I just wanted you to share a bit about yourself if you can and what you're doing at Synchrony right now.
Sure. So I lead corporate advertising, so at the brand level at Synchrony, which is a fairly new company. We're 5 years old, but we're, have this GE heritage of almost 88 years. So it's a really interesting time for the brand, right? We're trying to gain awareness and consideration, but we have so much history there. So when things like coronavirus come up, it's an opportunity for us to, I would say, kind of rethink, what is our value, what is our mission, and how can we continue to share that with, primarily, at least in my world, with business decision makers, very B2B focused day-to-day work and the content we create. So it's a really exciting time to be at Synchrony for sure.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it. And I just wanted to jump right into it, if that's okay, and just hear maybe something that you're really proud about, that you've worked on. I mean, it seems like you've had a pretty impressive background. I just wanted to see, what you think makes you a content hero.
Well, first of all, thank you for calling me a hero. I've never thought about myself, but I appreciate that. And I know that there's a couple people from my agency, Giant Spoon, listening. So I would say I also want to recognize that the content that we create is in partnership with them. And so the thing that I'm most proud of is Business Schooled. Okay. We launched this now 3 years ago, and it was our first ever branded podcast when brands were just coming into the space.
Right.
And an opportunity for us to connect with small to medium-sized business owners who were oftentimes overlooked as experts in business and driving results. And I think that was one of the key things that made that podcast so successful. It was on the top of the iTunes charts, and it almost really took us by surprise that, hey, this is something that business leaders are looking for today. And content marketer wants, right? To really find that sweet spot.
Right.
So I went and did 2 years of that podcast and kind of thought, honestly, maybe it's time to sunset the program. There's so many more podcasts in the space. Production was expensive. All of a sudden, coronavirus hits, right? And we were trying to figure out how to stay relevant and get content out to those business leaders. So we took a step back and decided we're going to pivot this. We're going to change the medium. We're going to shift from audio and go to video and get timely, relevant content out to our business decision makers, which are primarily small business owners, right? They're looking for insights. They need to hear from their peers. So we went out and interviewed virtually in this new work from home reality, business leaders, and ask them, how have you pivoted? How are you responding? How are you rebuilding your business? And I think it was a really interesting learning, and it's proven successful as a video, just like it was as a podcast, which is great.
Oh, wow. That's great. Yeah. Switching formats, and it proved to be super successful. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, we right now, Knotch has our own podcast, Pros and Content, and it's been really interesting to see, how people are using podcasts to get caught up on different stories and how other brands are using it to spread the word about what they're doing and stuff. So I think that's awesome. Congrats on that. And I did want to know if this is like a little bit of an maybe interesting question, but what's maybe a preconceived notion either you or the industry has had about content that has changed in 2020? We've been going through a lot, like things have been rapidly evolving as our world has had to adjust accordingly. And I just wanted to see if you had a thought about a preconceived notion about content that's taken a turn.
My head goes right to production, right? Like before coronavirus, we thought we had to be on set, travel, right? We traveled for that business school example when it was a podcast. Yeah. We went to 8 cities every season across the country.
Wow.
Coronavirus, we're all stuck at home, and we've learned that we can create extremely high quality content at a efficient price. And I think it was really, honestly, it feels freeing, right? There's this whole new way of doing work. And of course, there's going to be a time when we have to go into the field and shoot a commercial or interview and create a video. But that was definitely a preconceived notion that I had, was that there's really only one way to create beautiful content. And Corona has honestly disproven that in many ways.
Yeah, that's so accurate. Yeah, for our podcast, we were like, if Ando was going somewhere, our podcast producer, he was going too. He's going to San Francisco, anywhere. And now, that's not the case anymore. But it's been great to see, even with like virtual events, like we're able to gather so many people here together. It was, it's no sweat to have you log in from your home and join us online. So I completely agree. It's been great to see it take a pivot for the better. And do you have any content heroes or role models that you looked up to in your career, or any teams that you've really thought have made you, where you are today?
I am a super fan, and I know many people at Knotch will echo this sentiment, of Kristen Lumkow, former CMO of JP Morgan.
Yes.
I was so excited last year when she was at the Pros and Content in-person event you guys put on. So admire who she is as a person. Like, she's a power woman. She knows what she wants. She's not afraid to break the mold, right? And some of the examples we gave last year, even around, thinking of Chase as behind the paywall. We're gonna go up against the Facebooks of the world with our content. I mean, that's out of the box thinking and really inspiring. So I know she's moved on and she's on to bigger and better things, but I oftentimes still find myself like referencing her past work as CMO and thinking, like, if I could be in her shoes, right, what would do, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, she was killer. I remember I was helping to like live tweet that event, and people were just left and right tagging her like, great advice. She made an interesting comment saying, we need less meetings. And that resonated deep within my soul. So Kristen's been really, really great. And one last question for you too. What are you excited about next? Like the future of content is this event title. And I was just wondering if you had an idea of where you think, the future of content is headed. I know we've talked a bit about the preconceived notion about content and the way we've pivoted, but do you have any predictions for what's next?
I would love to be able to figure out like the measurement elephant in the room, to be honest. We're on the brand level, we're so focused on awareness and consideration in those top level metrics, but we're getting so much pressure now from the business. They're like, that's great, Molly, but like, what's the ROI? And to be honest, I haven't cracked that code. And I think there's many people probably listening who are also experiencing similar things. So I know people are working on it. I'm one of them. And that's really what I'm excited for the future, is that we're all heading in that direction, to be able to really say that content marketing at that brand level has a big role to play at the end of the year. And I'm really excited for that day to come, to be honest, Ryann.
That day is coming. Yeah, I'm sure people are writing in the stage chat. Well, Molly, great to have you. I think we're now going to be welcoming Arturo on stage. Yeah, okay. So our next content hero is Arturo Siguenza. Arturo Siguenza is the Senior Manager of Brand at Citrix. So I went to UCLA. Hey, hi, how are you?
Hey,
Hi. Well, I was actually
fellow Bruins.
intro, and I was about to say you're a fellow Bruin. Yes. I was very excited when I learned that little tidbit. And Arturo is an expert on honing in on the essence of brand purpose to express authentic brand stories, as well as overall marketing strategy. So Arturo, welcome. And I was just wondering, oh, hi, yay. And I was just wondering if you could just tell us a bit about your story and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like when I kind of first came into the world of work, I really never thought that I was going to be working in marketing. But when I started working at my first marketing agency, I remember I was in a room with one of my first clients that I had worked on. And they were just these two really, really passionate people about their brand. It was Christine Harkin and Barry Cohen. And they both were really just speaking so passionately about why they cared about their brand and why they wanted to make this campaign really do it justice. And that was when I really flipped my perspective of what marketing meant to the world, and what the role brand marketers really have in really showing the value of the brands and the purpose of the brands that they really represent. And that's really, I feel like, when I accelerated my passion for marketing. And so kind of fast forward to where I am now. I work at Citrix, Senior Manager Brand on the brand experience team. And I mainly manage overall brand advertising strategy for creative content and media, as well as overseeing our global media buying, planning, and execution. But really, I feel like Christina said in the keynote, I really try to consider myself a brand storyteller and really focusing in on ways that we're able to translate our marketing goals into the stories that we put out into market through the different creative media and content channels that we have. But I think that is really kind of what pushes me, is the storytelling aspect of it.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, it looks like you're doing a lot. So that's amazing. And I wanted to know if you maybe had a career milestone that you look back on that you think that's really kind of taken you to where you are today, and or maybe like an accomplishment that you're super proud of and want to share with the audience today.
Yeah, definitely. I think that one of the biggest career milestones, and I feel like the hallmark of my career so far, is actually a project that we just launched. I was a part of the big refresh that we did of the Citrix brand. We recently just launched last week a brand new creative look and feel, an identity, positioning, new logo, but really a new way of thinking about how we're representing our brand in the market. And I think being a part of that process was so enriching for me overall. But overall, I focused in on managing our overall brand campaign strategy to support that big launch. And I, along with the brand advertising team at Citrix, partnered with our great and fantastic team at Huge to develop our overall creative concept for this campaign. And we really, when we were building that, we were really looking back at what our brand really meant for the world, what our solutions were really enabling for our customers and the people that they ultimately are aiming to empower within their organizations. And realized that when we were telling our stories before, it was really like a me type of story. And I think that a lot of brands kind of fail to do this sometimes. It's like when we're trying to sell our product, it's always, okay, it's our product first versus thinking about the consumer first. And that is really kind of the pivot that I think that we made as we were going through the analysis of our overall brand repositioning. And ultimately what came of that overall work and being a part of that assessment was realizing that we needed to make this shift in perspective of how we were positioning our solutions, and realizing that it's the people that our solutions are empowering that ultimately is that story that we want to tell. And that was really the crux of what is our campaign now today. And I think working from initial ideation to concepting to strategy to then getting us to a final launch product is really kind of been the hallmark of my career so far. And I feel like the milestone. But I'll say shameless plug. If you haven't seen our commercial yet, go to YouTube, search "You're Made for Bigger Things" Citrix, and that commercial that we just launched, I feel like was the moment where I was like, it brought me to tears because it was just such a representation of all the work that we had done as a team.
Yeah.
And this brand that now fully represents our people, our customers, and the people that they represent so beautifully. So really, really one of my biggest proud moments of my career so far.
I know, I love that. It's great to see things from, implementation or ideation to execution. And yeah, no, plug that, like, call it a campaign, like talk about it. That's amazing.
I mean, we are on a content marketing event, right? So
yeah,
gotta make the plug.
This is the time. Actually, when you sent us your new updated Citrix logo for us to, put in our marketing materials, I told my team, like, this looks fresh. This looks great.
This is the Citrix I have always dreamed of. I started working at Citrix a couple of years back when I was first at my first media agency, just media. And I've seen it grow from where it was 3 years ago to where it is today. But I've always seen this Citrix when I first started. So it's so beautiful to finally see it out in market now to where it really should have been, So very proud.
Be part of that process. That's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask too, if you had any predictions you'd like to share on, what you think the future of content is. It seems like you've been listening in a different session, so you've probably heard a lot of people talk about, the future of content, where we think content strategy is going, and ways that people can help refresh their marketing strategies for the year ahead. So do you have any predictions you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think I'm going to expand on what John from Hopin said before about the use of virtual mediums for connecting people. I think that when we think about experiential in the past, we've really thought about it in kind of the lens of like these big South by activations that have been these huge installations that we have to really experience in real life. But I think that we're going to begin to see that continue to evolve. How are we using different mediums, virtual, physical, to really create experiences for our consumers, whether they're in person or whether they're at their home? So I think that we're going to continue to see that evolve. And I hope that one day we'll be able to do it with virtual reality, right? With chips in our brains, implanting a little experience into us so that we can experience something live. But I think that from a prediction standpoint, experiential, I feel like it's going to continue to advance.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And it's true. It's like our whole world of going to events and doing those things is completely revolutionized. But now I'm able to talk to you from my place here right now in DC and with you there. So this has been really great, Arturo. Anything else you'd like to share?
No, I think thank you guys for putting something like this together. It's been awesome seeing everyone on the different stages and being so inspired. So thank you all. Thank you, Knotch, for putting something like this together and for having me participate.
Yes, yeah, and thanks for stopping by. Bye-bye. Oh, and now I'm going to introduce our last content hero, Ann Merkert. So Ann Merkert is the Senior Director of Content Marketing at DocuSign. So Ann has 20 years of hands-on experience in all aspects of technology marketing across enterprise, service provider, and small business markets. So she'll be joining us here in a second, but I'm excited to connect with her. Ann, hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Ann. How are you?
Hi. I'm great. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes. No, I think it's good now. I think it's good. I'm so excited you're able to join us today. Can you just maybe tell us a little bit about your role at DocuSign and why you are here today and what got you to your role?
Sure. So I are content marketing at DocuSign, which includes all of the content we create for different thought leadership, demand generation campaigns, as well as our blog in the US. And then we coordinate with our global regions as well on sharing content and ideas for our different blogs in the regions. And I came to DocuSign, actually, I had a product marketing consulting firm for about 10 years and DocuSign was my client. So I so enjoyed working with this team that I decided to close my firm and join them.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's great. I was going to ask, actually, like, how has the DocuSign product marketing team made an impact on your story? So it looked like it made a pretty big one.
Yeah, definitely. I come from a product marketing background versus content. So I think that's really foundational to how I think about content marketing. So I think, some of the core ideas and what I saw in the DocuSign product marketing team that I think we are really good at is just understanding your audience, understanding the trends in those markets and challenges that the audience is going through, and creating content that speaks to helping educate them about, how they might look for solutions to those challenges.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So it looks like you have a couple of different perspectives that you bring to the table in your role. Yeah, that's really cool. And I was going to ask, I've asked this to a few of our content heroes, but I think it's just so important to see that one thing or that one event or that one campaign that has shaped you and that you're really proud to talk about. I always think it's important to hear what people are passionate about, what gets them inspired. So do you have any big accomplishments that you're most proud of, Anne?
Definitely. Well, this year I would say, because it's been a pretty busy year for us at DocuSign. I think the first is really an accomplishment of the whole DocuSign marketing team, which is that we had our annual customer conference, our biggest event of the year, was planned in person for March 4th. And so right at the beginning, even before, I think we were probably one of the first tech companies to make that decision to go virtual with like 5 days before the event. Yeah, so I'm not sure where I cut off, but I was saying that, we had planned for all kinds of breakout sessions and great speakers and great customers. And we had to very quickly pivot that to one sort of shorter live event, but then repurpose a lot of those breakout sessions to either webinars, or we would recap them in a blog, or it was really the beginning of us, I think, doing a better job of repurposing content from one event or one big research project into a lot of different pieces of content, which has served us well even throughout the rest of the pandemic.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. You were able to pivot so quickly. I mean, even like knowing from the jump that you're going to start an online event is already a feat in itself. And then even thinking at the time you were going to have an in-person event and then quickly pivoting, it's really a big accomplishment. They're able to do that so successfully. So I'm glad you had that great event. And what was the event called again?
It's called Momentum. So that's our annual customer event in the US. And we also do it in our some of our other regions like London and Paris and in Australia. And we've now replicated that virtual experience.
Yeah, doing it online. That's great. I might have lost you there at the bit end. So sorry if I ever cut you off or anything. And I was going to ask you, Anne, if you have an unpopular opinion about content. I'm just always wondering what people think about content that might be a little controversial.
Well, I don't know if it's controversial. I liked what some of the previous panelists were saying. I think it was Molly about measurement. So we face all the time. I feel I can't always measure the impact of content. And
you're hearing all the great things you're saying, and then it'll cut. I think do you want to maybe walk us through that again real fast?
Sure. I was just talking about the idea that I think a lot of thought leadership content is, you have to kind of earn that trust as a trusted resource for your customers and for your audience. So you can't always gate everything. You can't always measure everything. You have to sort of be willing to give up some of that initially to build that relationship and become that trusted advisor. So that's kind of where I was going.
Oh, no, this is great. And everyone's saying, thanks, Anne. Thanks for being such a trooper. You can't always predict these technology hiccups, but it's been really great to talk with you. Is there anything else maybe you want to share or leave audiences with before we wrap here?
I think I talked a little bit about it before, but I think I really like the idea from more of a product marketing perspective of how you tell stories, right? So really getting to know your audience, understanding and I think Arturo mentioned it as well, right? Not talking about yourself and your products, but about what the audience, in the language that they're talking about and the things that they're facing, and really helping them along to see, how can we help solve those problems in a unique and different way, and why should they think about us as a potential solution? So that's just kind of been my sort of flow of how to tell stories.
Yeah, no, and that's great. That's actually a really great place to end it on. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, no, of course. This was honestly not that it's just my panel, but I think it's really great to look at the people behind, all the content strategies and all the content programming that's going on. And so we wanted to celebrate content heroes like yourself, and I'm glad you were able to join us. So thank you so much. And yes. And, everyone, as you can tell, and that's all the time we have for today. So I would like to thank my amazing panelists for all of their time and for sharing their stories.